of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Patterson. Present. Trustee Yordi.
Yes. Gathering information to produce the 2023 appropriation budget. There's no final decision will be made at this meeting. Public access is for viewing only. Participation will not be allowed. Fiscal officer,
For the purposes of this meeting, except for the current 22 calendar year, the beginning balances of all revenues and expenses for the current year are through October 31st, 2022. Ending balances for the current year are strictly projected estimates. All figures for the budget year 2023 are also estimates. Capital expenditures are defined as property acquisition, new building construction, major facility renovation, public works projects, and heavy rolling equipment. General heavy rolling equipment is defined as expensive integral equipment, which is typical but not used daily. These expenditures can no longer be automatic expenses encumbered to the general fund. When adopting a budget, a resolution is approved, it is understood that the department's heads have permission to purchase any and all items approved under the resolution. Any desired expenditure which were not approved under the adopted resolution must be handled through the fiscal officer's purchase order procedures. There is going to be an overview. We will go over budgetary concerns, shrinking balances, potential increases from outside sources, and then overall budgetary summary explanation.
okay, police department.
I know we've done this different ways each year since I've been here. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go line by line, or do you just want to go overall about what the revenue is looking for? Or how would you guys like to do this?
I just would go I wouldn't go line by line if it's not necessary.
Okay. As you can see, I mean, the revenue overall is down. The total would be $1.134 million. Obviously, this is the last year, or next year, we have to start getting our thoughts how we can go about for our levy for next year, when we're going to be able to put it on a ballot for them to vote, whether it'll be in May or in November. But as far as revenue, and Julie can vouch for this, I think once again, we came in under budget. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't go over budget in any line item. So I think financially, we were pretty responsible for our budget once it's in, even though obviously it's underfunded, but it is what it is, and we make do with it. Is there anything in particular? I do plan on applying for the BWC, which is the best grant again, so hopefully you get that. And there's other grants out there as well that I'm gonna apply for, see what happens.
Have you heard back from that one that you're waiting on,
Other than every time I talk to them, they told me I got it. I just haven't gotten the
the
certificate.
official?
It's always Friday. It's like being a Cubs fan. There's always next year, but they always tell me every Friday I should hear something, and it's yet to happen. But they told me I'm getting it. It just hasn't
Great.
happened yet.
Okay,
Any other questions about the revenue?
I don't have any.
The revenue is pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't change a whole lot from year to year, especially being a township. It's not like we have a mayor's court where we can generate revenue or anything like that, so. If nobody has any questions about that, then we'll move on to the expenditures. Obviously, the biggest expense, depending on what the board decides with, is going to be our insurance that has gone up approximately 30%. Worst case scenario is 33%. Is that correct? Best case is 30%, but worst case 33%.
Yeah.
So as far as that expense, obviously I have no control over that expense. Or actually, probably none of us really have control over that, but it is what it is in today's day and age. There is, and I will go over when we get the capital part, but I mean, for the most part, I really don't have a lot of things that I plan on changing with the expenditures or increasing expenses. I did get some bad news, and we will talk about that later on about, I think our Crown Vic is pretty much done. So we'll get down to Wayne's and have the console.
I was just gonna say, Art's car.
George's car, and he's not handling it too well, and he was hoping to get another 2 years out of it, but I can't see me sinking,
But it's a Crown Vic. How old is it?
the 2010.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I didn't think
He
they
loved
were
it.
even.
I think they put a Reman motor in it, didn't they, prior
Yeah,
to?
we just did,
You did that, or?
yeah, we
DJ
put
did
a
that.
rebuilt one in there, and I mean, we thought we could, muscle it along, and
Well, if he
Got
wouldn't
the-
speed,
I'm sorry.
if he wouldn't speed,
This became Art's fault.
Yeah.
I'm not that he does.
No, so, but yeah, I mean, but I do have a solution for that, but we can talk about that when we get to that with the capital improvements, but that would be the biggest expense that I'm looking for. I have, opportunity to get another vehicle, to a used vehicle, but as far as the expenses, I don't really have. I did change a little bit with salaries as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that now, since we're in the expenditures, or you want to wait till we get to the personnel department or category. I think ammo is starting to come back down to a reasonable amount, so that's probably gonna help me out. Got several people, so I'm getting different bids for our ammo. So that's the only positive thing when it comes to some of the expenses, but for the most part, it is what it is. I haven't heard anything else reference the lease that might bring in some kind of an income if we are able to rent out that back area. That ends up moving forward and everything with that training facility, but
Mhm.
that's not gonna solve my other financial problems. It's not gonna bring in any kind of revenue like that, so.
Okay,
um, So obviously you can see the fund balance, even with the cash carryover. I think the total amount was 300 and our cash carryover is gonna be 348,854. The projected balance was a lot worse. We actually have found some money. I should say, Lori found some money for us that greatly reduced that number, which helped us out. Some of it, a lot of it was with the grant that I was awarded and with lack of part-timers and having that expense. So that saved a tremendous amount of money. Because it originally was 500,000 and now the number is at 193,000.
Where's that at on your fund balance for the 193? Not seeing that, or where are you at?
It's the fourth page, I think, Keith, where it kind of breaks down just a quick and dirty. Looks like this.
Very,
Angel, one more. Nope. Go back one.
Go back. I think you're sticking together. There you
There,
go.
the 193. Is that what you were asking?
yeah, still don't see 193 on. Oh, I'm sorry, 193, 535, 49.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go back up to your fund balance, which is in red. You stated three something. I've got on my sheet 400,996.74.
I was looking at the cash carryover over here on the budget summary.
Yeah, you switched places on.
I'm sorry.
Jumping the gun. Okay.
Standalone, it's in front of you,
Yes.
up by your
Okay.
nameplate.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
That one's
And these are
The opposite
projections.
I have.
Yeah, those are projections.
It is very likely that 22 will end the year slightly better off than what we're projecting. And then again, 23 if trends hold, will end up slightly better off. These are worst case, I hope, worst case scenarios.
Anybody else have?
Let me just make sure I'm following this right. So this is the 193 is the carryover? Or is the deficit?
That's gonna be the.
That's the cash transfer.
Correct.
Okay. Got
Carryover,
it.
knock on wood, will be. It should actually be the 542, correct?
No,
Or is it gonna be the 348?
well, that's at the end of 2023. We're going to start the year at roughly 542,
542, correct, for this.
which
year.
means the deficit, he will be using portion of his carryover for that.
To cover it. Okay.
Correct.
So our levy with conservative budgeting and finding a lot of grant money and all of that still was almost $200,000 short to operate the department this year.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's what, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure that's the,
And partly what ends up saving him in the department is the fact that we cannot remain fully staffed.
yeah, you haven't been able to carry your full complement the full year.
Right.
So,
So
when we start making those strides to do that, somebody,
good news, bad news, Portia.
right.
And to restate, the increase, the last renewal with an increase was insufficient to fund a full-time department. It's been underperforming since year one. And miraculously, the department's been able to sustain. If you look back at 2018, how they ended their year, they only had 335,000.
Mhm.
And it's slightly bumped up. It's a miraculous, I believe.
Yeah.
So they've done the best they can with what they have, and you can tell, you can kind of see where change of command there goes from 19 to 20.
Mhm.
Benefited a little bit with CARES Act money, but nothing hugely substantial for that department. And then Keith, just to help you along, Administrator Kyle added the revenue at the bottom of the revenue page with the grant. We did extract out of that, the retention bonuses that we're estimating for the department. I think the number is slightly more significant if you look at the press release and what they told us to get. So we backed out the money for retention bonus. So that wouldn't muddy the water.
Okay.
What you just talked about is not on this sheet here. We've moved again.
That is correct. I flip-flop back to the budget, the first page of the budget sheet, which is the revenues tab. And we added a to be determined sub-fund number down there because we don't know what it's going to be at this point.
Where it says violent crimes grant.
Ohio Violent Crimes Grant. This is the grant that,
Okay, I see that.
okay. Because he was counting on the salaries and it was really lopsided in talking with Laurie. She said, I kind of feel like we need to add in that revenue, and I wholeheartedly agreed with her. So she did most of the heavy lifting on that.
Is there anything on here from an expense perspective that chief gives you heartburn, or you want to just flag as, hey, down the road, other than capital?
I was gonna say other than insurance.
Other than capital, well, insurance you can't control, right? I mean, it is what it is, although we could talk about that a little bit, but in capital, we haven't gotten to yet, but anything else here that just for the benefit of us, you want us to know, this is relevant this year, not next year, or hey, this is where it is this year, next year, I'm going to need something different.
Most of that will be when we have the discussion about, I guess, for lack of better terms, personnel,
Okay.
vehicles.
Okay.
The building,
I'm sorry.
and the building.
In the,
Yeah.
in the building, yes. I mean, that is one of my big questions, and I know we've sort of had some conversations about this, because I don't want to throw good money after bad money, since my money is so limited right now. I mean, really, what is the goal for this building here? I don't want to keep doing renovations if somebody's going to show up with a bulldozer and now I just spent thousands of dollars, maybe a bulldozer in it or whatever. So that would be one of my biggest questions. Because my officers have asked me about a locker room and stuff like that, and we have a quasi locker room at best right now, but it would be nice if they could change here. They get here and stuff like that. Or clean up or something if they get dirty out in the field or whatever it is.
What do they do with like extra gear? They just have it in their car.
Yes. We do have like 4 or 5 lockers back there, but I think Brian and now Tim is the only two that use it. But we're gonna have to clean that up too, especially if that building gets, or the training place gets built back there, because I don't.
When are they gonna-
Use this bathroom, I'm sorry.
When are they gonna start doing anything back there?
We have to get that lease and everything finalized, I would think, before we start moving forward.
And what's the holdup with that?
There was a couple of questions and I'm waiting to hear back from Dawn. I'll probably reach out to her either tomorrow or
okay.
Wednesday to see if she's had a chance to look at the lease and what her opinion is on that or anything, but I haven't heard back from her, so.
Okay.
I think Keith asked a couple questions and
Right.
then I had gone through and just flagged some things that I thought we needed legal review on. So
Okay.
I mean, our biggest thing, and I know we've discussed this, especially when it comes to the grant, I know there's gonna be some ARPA funds that are left over. Obviously, we don't know what the final number is gonna be for Paul. That's a huge amount, which I totally understand and get. But if there is any of that money left over, I would definitely want to throw my department in there that we need these radios pretty bad. So
Okay.
at least if we can get a few of them out of there, and they're about $10,000 a piece. Or between 6,000 and 10,000, depending on what you get. I think there's some that are cheaper than the Motorola's and all that, so it all just depends, but I would definitely like to have the opportunity to get some of that funding if we could.
I know we said Paul was gonna take all that initial ARPA fund money and everything like that. And now that there's that additional money coming in, can we back up any on that? Utilize the second batch of money to Paul and take some of that first money that wasn't designated strictly to the road and redirect it? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It all just depends if they loosen the restrictions on what we're allowed to do or what we're allowed to use it for, because that was the issue is even though we had the funding, there was a lot of restrictions on what we could use that money for. So I don't know if they've changed any of the restrictions or.
I think the second tranche is a lot easier to use than the first, right?
Really?
As far as the ARPA funds?
Yeah.
No,
No.
it's all
Same.
because we elected to take it as revenue loss. And I don't know how the county did it, but the
Okay.
county is now giving the money for paving.
Right.
Saw that.
So it's either we split it, but it seems to be earmarked for paving.
Right.
But I see what Ellen is saying, if we could split that project, is it Smith and Morgan Ross? But I don't know if there's another big section of road that Paul's thinking that may need to be done by 24. If
I
not,
don't
you
know.
could split it up, but I believe we've already put in our estimates in our bid. I mean, they're going out for bids, so it's kind of like we've already told them what we're gonna do.
Well, we told them what we were gonna do, but we have to stick with how we're gonna fund what we're gonna do.
I know, because if we could use the county money,
Yeah.
it could
Right.
free up.
County first in and then us.
Right. Saying in that way, he wouldn't be so stressed.
Or you could use ARPA funds
For the
on the
radio.
building.
True.
You could take some ARPA funds and get some review of this building and then take a look at what's left over. Because I'm assuming there's grants out there for radios at some point. I mean, it's like at
There's
some
usually
point, you're not gonna have
I
non-functioning
mean,
radios.
I can't say there's not grants out there because I know like the first Firehouse Subs puts grants out there for that and all that, but it's just
Believe Chief
us and everybody
Miller,
else are fighting for it, so.
Right.
Have an
I
update?
believe Chief Miller had put in for but I don't know that he's gotten any information back. So it could be that everybody's doing the same thing.
Yeah, that could be.
Well, what about applying ARPA funds to the dispatch fees? Because, that's the other major consideration to
Right.
this department's budget was that when the levy was set, certainly didn't forecast the expense
Of that.
of that, right?
I was fortunate that actually went down about 1,500, so I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm not complaining.
No.
It went down by 1,500?
Yeah, it
Oh.
went down to like 80,000. We're at 82,000.
Oh, it's
So
just 80,000.
it is what it is.
That would be a thought
That would be a yes.
if,
But I do know they also, I mean, I know different communities that have used it for renovation of their facilities and stuff like that, so.
Thinking, there's ongoing expenses that we have to build in, right? Radios and uniforms and capital budget. And then there's these like one-time expenses. And you also have one-time funds with ARPA. And so I think it's just a question of what can't get picked up somewhere else. And, a little like
right.
doing Paul's Road. That's a huge outlay we'd never be able to do. So get her done, right? But the radios are important. I don't want anyone to think, I don't think radios are important. I'm just wondering at $6,000 or $10,000 each, you almost just wonder if there may be other ways to fund it.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul and trying to piece them together, and just depends on what goes on with the comm center and stuff like that, about what radios work and what don't work, because like I said, I just got those radios from an agency up north, and they weren't compatible with our system, so. Keep trying.
Yeah.
All right, what would you like to discuss next? You want to do
Capital.
capital? So obviously, since I told you about the vehicle going down, I have been in conversations with Matt Abercoast with EMA.
Mm-hmm.
This vehicle would actually fix a lot of problems for us. Actually, it is what it is. He has a 2012 Ford pickup truck that's fully outfitted. It would be, only thing I would really have to do to it is put a cage in it and obviously wrap it. But he's willing to sell it to me. It has a little over 100,000. Julie looked at it, Lori looked at it, I've looked at it. It'll serve a lot of purposes for us, but he offered me, or he said he could sell it to me. Obviously, the board would have to approve it, not only you, but the EMA board would have to approve it. And I can't vote on it, even though I'm on the EMA board, obviously, but for $20,000, he would sell it to me. I'm telling you, this vehicle is in great shape. I can use it for a command vehicle. If something happens, it has a whiteboard in the back. You can slide it out. You can carry a lot of equipment for processing crime scenes. I mean, it really serves a lot of functions, and it can still work the road, especially since obviously 2010 is going to be going down. So, I mean, we can use it on the road. It would be minimal expense with the RAV. The light bar that's already on it is operational. I mean, we can use it and convert it into red and blues, because I think right now it has the orange or whatever it is that EMA uses. So, I mean, the expense to get it functional for the road would not be that much. I'm expecting, I think I put 30,000, but that wouldn't even be, I think I'd be well under that, probably about 25,000.
What year is it?
It is a 2012. There's no rust on it. There's no Bondo, none of that stuff. I mean, the body is in great shape. Middletown is the one that's been doing all the maintenance on it and everything. He can provide all the maintenance records and everything for the vehicle as far as oil changes, tires, I mean, all that. I mean, when we looked at it, it looked like it was in very good shape.
2012 what?
Ford. Was that a 250 or 350, remember?
Don't remember.
How many miles?
It was just over
At
100,000.
100.
earlier, I thought you said 2015,
No, it's 2012.
2012.
Yes,
So basically, in all aspects, it's got another 100,000 miles of life, right?
I would say, yeah.
Pushing it.
Right.
Yeah, 200,000.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, I mean, with the.
Yeah, police work is just like taxi work. It's extremely hard on every moving part on the vehicle.
So, but.
And again, has it got a cap on it or no?
Yes.
Oh, it does have a cap,
Yes.
not open bed.
And it has a piece in there that can slide out. Like I said, it has a whiteboard on it. You can put different, equipment on there for, crime scenes and stuff like that. Down the road when we get total stations or stuff like that, to help process crime scenes, it'll be, I mean, it'd be just a great vehicle for us to have.
Have the pursuit package?
Actually, I think it did have the pursuit package.
Because that would be my hangup, is if it had the pursuit package or not, right? Like just for safety of
Right.
whoever's driving it or around it.
Actually, it did. I'm pretty sure, but I would double check with that one, but
And he's a solid 30.
I.
That's what- that's-
And he's 20.
Solid 20. He sold it for
Okay.
20. The 30 is where I was just talking about the cage and the wrap. And maybe some tweaking. So I'm
Agreed.
thinking probably about 25. I did 30 just to be safe.
What, have you looked at what Blue Book is on that vehicle? And I know it has some extras with the cap and all that, but Blue Book at that year vehicle with that many miles.
The piece that he has that actually slides out, he told me he paid, that was actually 20,000 just for that piece that he put in there. That's how much it is. I mean, it's steel, it's a heavy piece that slides out. They looked at it, whatever. I mean, it was pretty impressive. So just that piece alone, I mean, I can imagine what that metal or steel would cost now in today's day and age.
Yeah, I think Keith's just asking about the truck itself.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
I'll look it up. See if we got it.
Actually, I have pictures of it.
Okay, I typed it in and it gave me a Ford Focus, which is.
There's
You're gonna need to give me a minute here.
There's a police.
Take a minute.
Prisoner goes in the trunk.
Yeah, that looked pretty funny, you pulling up on that.
4x4?
Yes.
All right, so I got 4.5 stars, consumer rating. For
It's got the
2012.
front and the side view of it.
Are the Tahoe's 4x4 or just all-wheel drive?
I think those are all-wheel drive.
All right, I think he used to park this one at the PD.
They have a few of them, but that one they're able to part with.
Okay, I see the cap you're talking about with the side entry.
Correct.
And you said wrap, would you wrap it all gray as close to as our gray as you can get? Would it be a complete vehicle wrap?
Yeah, what's his name? Mr. Combs up in New Miami?
Yeah,
The one that.
rack, yeah,
Right, or whatever. I can't think of his,
I know who you're talking about.
but yes, he would do it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I apologize.
You're fine.
So Keith, to answer your question, Kelly Blue Book has a 2012 F-250 Super Duty.
Yeah.
For 14.6 without all the bells and whistles and pursuit package.
Good for used vehicle though.
Right. I mean, he has a mount, there's already a mount in there, but we have the mounts from when we ordered them back then. So I mean,
Why is he getting rid of it?
he's trying to downgrade to a more of an SUV. I think he wants an Explorer or something along those sides. He
Okay.
doesn't need something that size.
I mean, that's the downside, right? It takes, I'm good.
I've seen that.
It takes a lot of gas, right?
4x4?
Yeah.
F-250? Yeah.
Little vroom vroom, and it takes a lot of gas. The
It's
flip
probably gonna be
side,
10 to
though,
15 miles to the gallon.
you get a snowstorm.
diesel or no?
You get something like
No, it's
that.
gas.
That's ass, okay.
It's the trade-offs, right?
Mm.
Especially when I have a car that's getting ready to go down and like we talked about, this is a one-time payment. If I tried to get a brand new car, obviously
Right.
that's not even an option right now. I mean, we're going
14
to
months later,
60.
we thought about getting Art a bike.
Well, he'd love
If I
that.
get outfit as Harley, he would probably love that, but, I
Different
mean,
bike.
it's gonna be, yeah. Not if it's-
Not in the budget.
it's all-
Not a boom boom. I will spring for the back.
But, yeah, I mean, if I was to get a car in a perfect world, it'd be about 60,000 right now in today's market. And obviously, we have no idea when that's gonna happen. I think Ford just canceled all their orders on Explorers or something. There's some issues with that. People are going to Dodge Durangos.
Have any issues?
Which was never a good.
Like, so, let's say we arrest someone Do you have any issues getting them into a truck like that? I mean, you put the cage in and all that, but like just,
I would say,
I mean, I'm sure some departments use these as a normal vehicle, depending on like across the
Right.
country, right? It's just not something we see
yeah,
here.
Florida, a lot of vehicles in Florida or police departments in Florida have. different-
Our truck.
Out west too.
That's what I was thinking out west.
Out west.
Right,
For the what?
For some reason Vegas.
For the terrain,
Oh,
out
terrain.
west Arizona, they've been used a lot of.
Right.
it.
Okay, so it's not an
Popular.
I would tell you that the seating in 2019, 18, and 17 is horrible getting in that tile. You literally have to sit in it sideways.
Mhm.
It's just not made for somebody that's above 4 feet tall. But I will tell you,
Marcella?
yeah, it is that kind of a fix. But I will say with 2021, with us putting that hard seat in the back, there's a lot of room back there now. So,
Oh, the prisoner seat, absolutely. You gain a lot of space.
yes,
Good.
but I know I have new tasers on here for about 10,000. I mean, our tasers, I mean, these are so outdated. They're so, I mean, they're worn down. Half of them don't work. It is what it is with them. It's about 10,000 to replace all of our tasers right now. But I don't need one with all the bells and whistles and all the cameras and all that stuff. I just need one that's going to work whenever you pull the trigger. And what we have right now is not sufficient. But the good news is, I was actually talking to Julie before we got started, and I have 22,000 in my LE trust fund that I could use that funding to buy that. So,
And that is not reflected in the revenue.
Right.
That's just been sitting out here in carryover land.
correct. So I do have that opportunity for that funding.
What's LE funding?
So we get that, we have two different grants, or not grants, we have two different types of funding. One of them we get from the courts every year, fines from our OBIs and citations, and
Legal.
stuff like that. And we also have ones where we have forfeitures. If we, like, recovered or seized like $5,000 on a traffic stop that we ended up getting forfeited to us. So they're kept in separate line items. Pretty much you can use them almost for anything as long as it's job related, for training, equipment, stuff like that. You can never use either of them for salaries, but it's for training
It's-
and equipment.
Funds 2221 and 2261 are the two different funds he's talking about.
Okay, I see it.
And the carryovers are not reflected on this.
Okay.
Actually, I have them highlighted here if you want to look at them, because that's what we were talking about. This will reflect. That's the amount that's in each one, 8,000 and 22,000 and the other.
Keep in mind, those totals are reflected in the projected carryovers though, too. So,
Over here,
right.
yeah.
But he does
They're
have it,
accounted for, but they're.
Oh,
Here,
highlight.
yeah.
correct. And we could potentially designate those to be paid for specifically through the carryover. If that's,
That'd be good.
Backing up a little bit to your Ohio Violent Crimes Grant. That's the one supposedly that they keep telling you got. They just won't let you know you have it.
Correct.
Can any of that money be earmarked for some radio purchases, or is that outside their scope?
No, that's strictly for hiring and retention of officers is what that grant is used for. It doesn't say anything about equipment.
That's the one we already got. Am I,
correct.
you applied for another one. What's the name of that one?
Oh, that one. Yes, I can use that one for equipment and stuff like that, but I have no idea. That deadline for that grant is December 15th, I think it is, or
Okay.
somewhere in.
So you say you keep calling, we still not been awarded this money, even though we were told we had the grant back in what,
I've been awarded it. They keep telling me I have. I just haven't received a certificate from the state yet, but they keep telling me, I mean.
Is it,
I've
is
been
it,
talking-
No money is coming.
is this, no money's attached to that certificate? We still don't have any, we still don't have this money in our account.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
In fact, it's been part of all their press releases. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just they've not sent an official,
God bless the government.
I
And the
know.
lady apologizes to me every time. And literally, she tells me, this Friday it's coming out, this Friday it's coming out. I'm like, I said, I have a budget meeting coming up. I really would like to know. She goes, you have the money. Just-
You don't.
You just
We
don't
just
have
don't
it.
have the money.
And who was the grant through? Was it a state agency?
Yeah, that was through, it was basically through ARPA, but it was for recruitment and retention, is what that that grant
I was
was.
just wondering if they have to close out on a calendar year, or if they don't. They probably don't, right? Because if it's the state
It's the
that are
state,
closing
it's-
out in June.
It was Governor DeWine's.
Okay. I was just trying to give you some hope, but then I just crushed it.
Hopefully, about 2 months ago, when they first told me that we got it.
What did you say about the wine? Somebody
That
mentioned.
was DeWine's program,
It's his program,
like DeWine's program.
Yeah,
and they're giving it out like, so I think they're up to like 8 different awards. They're doing little tranches at a time, or for lack of a better term.
hmm.
Okay.
I think I have her on speed dial. We talk on a weekly basis.
You ought to call her just to say hi sometime.
Yeah.
She'd probably like that.
The other item that I have on there for capital improvements for next year is Federal Station. I'm not really gonna be. Nope, that's wishful thinking. I'm not really worried about whether I get the total station. I'm not gonna lose sleep. There's other things that are a bigger priority to me than that total station. But that would definitely help out down the road. We will, look at a later date and time with, it helps with, fatalities and serious car accidents and, crime scenes. It'll pretty much, it gives measurements and, not statistics, but does measurements for where items are and all that. It does pretty much all the work itself. That and in conjunction with the crime scene scanner, can pretty much do the whole work of any crime scene or fatal auto accident that you would need to. Modern technology. They just used it on, fatal that we had on Lehigh. The sheriff's department just used it.
I was gonna say, doesn't the START team have one?
Yeah, theirs is a lot more advanced than all that, but they're not going to come out for a homicide, or they're not going to lend it.
Oh,
to
I got you.
Something like that.
Outside of motor vehicle, okay.
Right. The other thing is I would like to hopefully get a speed trailer that actually works. Probably get more money out of the one in the back if we scrapped it or whatever. It just doesn't hold the trailer very long. The batteries are pretty much shot and they're not cheap to replace, and it doesn't keep track of data and all that. So when people come in and complain, and I can show them where we've had the speed trailer out there for X number of days or whatever it is, that the fastest anybody's gone is 5 over it, and that equipment back there, that's just outdated.
Yeah, the solar panel doesn't work at all.
No, no.
And I don't know how old ours are, but like Hamilton had the same problem with some solar panels on there. Like it's a good idea, right? And then it's just not working the way.
It was given to us, I think, prior to Chief Kramer. Yeah,
That one was given to us?
yeah, somehow somebody had their use of it because they got a newer one and we accepted it, of course.
Hamilton.
It's a possibility.
I mean, they have those real small ones that you
Way
can
down
mount on
one
a pole, but a lot of our subdivision, I mean, there's not always poles somebody or somewhere that you can hook it up to, and I don't think you could wrap it around somebody's tree and stuff like that and mount it. I don't know if they even want me to do that, but. So there are pros and cons with them. But I would like to have something at least that kept statistics. So that when somebody does complain about speeders and stuff like that, I have something that I can provide for them. And then at 25, I would like to be able to get a new cruiser. Stuff isn't still floating out at sea.
Well, your wish list isn't too bad.
I try and keep it reasonable and
Yeah.
explain. I mean, I think the Atari PlayStation and all that was,
Necessary.
but it would be nice to, I mean, and I do appreciate Trustee Blower donating that TV down there, that we start doing some in-service training here, that, I mean, we can just plug our computer into that TV and we can do some in-house training and all that. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to having that TV down there, just scheduling and once again, just trying to get things moving in the right direction here instead of just always treading water. That would be great.
So
To make it happen.
I think you did you've got a more robust capital plan than some of the other departments did, so thank you. But also just, I would love to see everything filled in for the next 5 years, and things can move, right? Things can fall off, things can change. I mean, it's a living document, but just I feel like a lot of department heads, you guys are kind of like trying to hold it. It's like, well, yeah, but for planning purposes, we need to know, especially with levy discussions coming up. So
could have put in there by the IGA and look like Monroe's PD, but
Having lived through that project once, I think I'll respectfully decline.
But I mean, I guess if I could put, my biggest thing is really, what are we gonna do with this building? Because it's, I mean, I know ever since I've been here, I keep hearing about this 5-year plan, but
We haven't done it.
it's just, especially from here on over, it's just a train wreck. And even the gentleman down there on Cincinnati Brookville that come out and do the patchwork for us, which I greatly appreciate. It's just something sooner or later has to get done with this roof.
Have you guys walked back there in the last
How many times?
Not-
couple of years? Well, yeah, you've been back through there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is not our best foot forward.
That,
The
well,
electric here is just,
I like the garage door in the middle of nowhere. That's one of my favorites. That's permanently up
Or nowhere.
right above our,
Oh, they just built.
because they
over the
just
top.
built around it.
I have seen.
No need to fix that. You just put that door up, it'll be fine.
with the spaghetti wiring above it. I mean, my office right now is about 20 degrees warmer than it is out here, and the thermostat port is way back there, and the control panels are, God only knows when.
And your office leaks.
None of the temperature gauge work for any portion of this building, because you could feel the coldness now.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
fluctuates as you move through.
Right. So,
What was the
I,
thought?
I ask about dimming these lights at night. We don't even know where the switch is.
Pretty sure it's in my office.
This can allow, because we always have the police department over the steps going into
Yeah.
the bathrooms and
Yeah.
the back offices. I can't find a switch to shut these two off. It's not over there. It's not in the panel back here.
is it in Julie's office?
It might,
No,
no,
no, I've
Look.
well, if it is, it's not highlighted on the,
well,
I don't want to flip something off that may not come back on.
Especially in the finance office, right?
I'm just thrilled that the light switches got installed out here, and so that people didn't have to constantly go into my office, because
What was that?
as a best practice, it's not ideal. Because I have things on my desk that may be sensitive. I have checks locked up and things of that nature. But for instance, the Historical Society would have to be let in to be able to switch the breakers on and off. And I'm like, I'm not real comfortable with this.
No.
So we did do that improvement. I appreciate that.
And I will say, and I haven't spoken to Danny Welch in a while, he did offer to give us all the wood and everything to finish the deer head room back there. Which would be great for us, but
The what room?
where Jack kept his big deer head back there, where filing cabinets in the back there. I just call it the deer head room. It's right.
Storage. Storage room.
But he offered to give us all the wood, drywall, everything to finish that. Now, that was obviously when Tom was here and he was able to do it himself, so I still think he would help us out, but I don't know who would build that for us now. So.
And I think it goes back to like, should you, right?
Right.
Because unless you
If you're
get
gonna
the
bulldoze it, then why am I?
electrical and the HVAC straightened out at the very least
And the
before you
roof.
do anything, and the roof. What was the thought when we bought this building?
I didn't buy.
No, I just thought you might have heard stories, or you guys might have talked about this over the years.
We bought this?
Oh, I was with the police department at that time, yes.
But was it like this is a 10-year fix, this is a permanent home?
Well, they were going to bring the police department and also the fire department.
What I was told is when that floods down there.
Yeah.
When they were supposed to make this a government building.
Right,
Go up and include the fire department in this structure somehow.
right.
That's what I was told.
Did we ever space plan it, or like, did
No.
we just eyeball it? We thought, like, okay,
Yeah.
It'd be great if we could buy Fifth Third, obviously, that wishful thinking. And this whole area is just ours, and we could spread it out for the fire and us, whatever we need to do, so. But, I mean, it really would. I don't want to put more money in this building here if it would just be a waste and I can spend that money on something else, so. That's all I have for capital improvement, unless you guys have any questions for me
That's,
upstairs.
I sounded, seen somebody pull in.
He's listening in, waiting for his round of Vic.
That's better.
Nobody works.
I wonder how long if we had this building.
2015, prior to 2015.
Raymond would have been.
Yeah.
Involved.
Prior to 2015.
You're right.
Oh,
Oh, no,
God.
I doubted it.
5, 6, 7 years.
Did we,
Time needs to slow down a smidge,
Wow.
just a
did
smidge.
they do any like studies or blueprints or anything like that that got handed over? Or was it just kind of walk through and see what's here and, okay.
And yeah, it's great.
And it is a vast improvement over the other
I was gonna
building.
say, it is, it's a huge step, right? It's just like, how do we now take the next step so that people aren't in wet offices or,
Right.
you know, we
Kinda like-
don't have a situation where we're burning money because we can't find the light switch.
Right.
Right? I think actually that, especially at night, to have this a little dimmer would be, you know, kind of nice
I wonder-
and energy efficient, you know, good things.
I wonder if the previous owners would know where those switches are.
We could explore it and figure out by process of elimination.
Because the switch for the light steps getting to the bathrooms, that's right there on, by the door. So that's sufficient. But like I said, I go by here at 2:00 in the morning. I say, there's just no reason for them to be on. There's nobody sitting in that office.
Well, and think
And I
about,
couldn't find a place to shut them off after our last meeting.
I mean, it's
There's a
really
circuit
hard.
breaker all the way in the far back that controls some of the stuff up here, and there's just no rhyme or reason for why that happens. I mean, it is just, I mean, the thermostat, the control up here is down there. So it's like,
Well, think about like a computer gets fried. I mean, there's just like how hard it is to heat and cool with those windows. And I'm not saying we get rid of them. We ought to kind of think about some of that.
oh,
My
in summertime,
concern
you
is
get baked.
the roof.
Oh, for sure.
We're gonna end up losing computer equipment in that area.
That's what,
Um,
yeah.
It's just
Well,
bad.
that was our concern with the new surveillance equipment, or recording equipment that we got with that roof leaking. So,
Just. To,
Okay.
no call.
all right. We have to go in executive session for personnel.
Yes.
So we turn that off?
Now you gotta move
Yeah.
this one.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-194 to retire to executive session to discuss the employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1. The time is 5:47. Roll call, please. Or I need a second.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we're coming back. I move for the adoption of motion 22-195 to return from executive session to the scheduled special meeting. Time is 6:24. I need a second.
Second,
Roll call.
Trustee Patterson,
yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee York.
Yes. Okay, administration, Lori Kyle.
Okay, move out here. Right, administration. Well, thankfully, since the zoning did not pass, look in a little better shape than otherwise. I don't see any reason to go over this line by line. The revenue's really not much different than last year. You all had any specific revenue related questions?
We have someone
Okay.
that looks at our cell phone tower lease payments and just makes sure we're getting as much as we could be for those. I don't know if there's anybody that does that. How do we negotiate them? Do we just set a contract and? I don't know how we do it at the city either. I'm just thinking how do we know that we're getting the most that we could be getting? Randomly pops in my head.
It's at least on the, what's the other one? Cable franchise
Cable,
fees.
yeah.
They at least send you an explanation of totals, less an admin fee. Here's your quarterly payment. But at least you have something that you can look at. Work the Verizon rents and leases, it's just, it is what it is.
In regards to expenditures for next year, nothing out of line there either. The only significant expense, which really isn't that large, is our computer consultant has suggested that we get a new managed switch for our computer system, which would be close to $2,000. All of the other expenses are in line with what has occurred this year. We do need to have a discussion on the request for a plow truck for the new road department, if that is going to be expensed. It used to be capital expenses were all under the general fund.
Now say that again.
The road department, Paul,
Yeah,
superintendent, has requested to purchase a plow truck. It would be a
Right.
capital expense because
Right.
it's not used on a daily basis.
okay.
Typically, that would come out of the general fund. However, the past few years, it's been determined that capital expense should not automatically come out of the general fund. It should be looked at closely to see if the general fund should absorb the expense, if the department should, in other words, should they have projected the expense and included it in a levy. The department doesn't have a levy that they could have done that. We don't foresee them having a levy anytime soon. Do you want to share the expense, have half of it come out of the general fund and his department absorb the other half?
Did he really absorb that?
I don't believe that it's feasible. He's already running a very tight. And with the hope that the ARPA funds for paving, he might get a chance to recoup a little bit. He's already eating into his cash carryover, so really don't.
I can't do it.
If we go with just his budget, he comes out like $47,000 ahead. That's not enough to even.
Consider it.
Is there a value to, I'm gonna get this wrong, but transferring money and things like that so that when you do have that levy discussion, those expenses are kind of accurately reflected if you do a 5-year look back? Something about maybe a transfer to his fund from the general fund, but it's falling under his bucket versus
Well,
this bucket.
And yeah, I understand you correctly. It
I'm
would
not sure
require
if I
a
understand
transfer of funds.
Anyways,
Mhm.
okay,
Which would be traceable.
okay, I got it.
Which is good.
Which is
Right,
good,
yeah.
right, yeah, that's,
Because it would be a
Showing.
transfer out on the admin side, general fund side, and it would be a transfer in whichever bucket we put it in on the road side. So it's available to review. And I do know that those have to be line itemed out every year in our Hinkle reporting.
So that's the only expense that needs to really be considered, where it needs to come from. If you look at the administration department's fund balances, I have assumed that the general fund would pay 100% of it. That's almost exactly the amount that the administration department is negative.
So you don't get paid then?
Maybe Paul doesn't have the plan.
Wow. 10. Yeah. Paul doesn't have the money anywhere.
Not without a levy. And
Right.
very, coming on very quickly.
Well.
So in addition to deciding about the plow truck, the only projected expenses for administration are, to reiterate what the
dip into this.
police chief said, the plans for this building
Dipping into that.
Right.
for minimum the roof.
Double dip in.
Clarifying.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was just looking at, I mean, there is 656,000 carryover in the road fund in 22. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, and that's from a variety of sources.
Which may or may not be allowable for a truck.
Correct. What were you saying?
Just that the projected large expenses, capital expenses for the administration department, in addition to the plow truck, would be answered in the building for urgently needed. I did go up on the roof when the contractor came, and he said, and I tend to believe it, that there's two different types of roofs up there. And the problem is where you're trying to join those two roofs.
the valley.
Well, just two
Right.
different,
Two different materials are coming
Materials.
together and they don't, like you probably have a membrane roof and a metal roof or something like that, and they're not coming.
it will be very difficult to find a solution.
Can they put a metal roof on up there? Or do they need the drain? Would they have to?
I think it's mainly metal roof now. I know this section is here. And I don't know the age of it, but usually them screws that hold down the middle roof are 20+ year screws. The little rubber grommet will dry rot. I think some of the problem is, and I'm not a roofer by any means, is the actual pitch of the roof is,
Or lack thereof.
or lack thereof, that the water cannot exit fast enough during a rainstorm, so it will back up. Also, another problem is the amount of vegetation we have overhanging the parking lot up top. If you were to walk up there now to the back end, there's probably a tree that's 30 feet on top of the building.
Which is the next property over?
Yeah,
Or is
well,
it
it's on the
ours?
property line. I don't know exact, is it Laney Leach's property or townships? I know the building is it sits right on top of the property line by 2 or 3 feet. But the leaves come across the parking lot blowing, and they'll get up underneath that screen and fill the gutter up. Actually, also where, again, the parking lot up top was not originally built with this building. So the seam where they butt together, that's where it leaks inside the building. It comes in and it's following its least resistance and
Is it just
then
like,
dropping down.
like it
Yeah.
floats through and then it?
Again, your aspect, a metal roof, a metal, like you would put on a pole barn, that would be sufficient.
Yeah.
Again, those last longer than shingles. I have every intention that at 5 years down the road to put a metal roof on top of my house, which is a 40-year roof versus a 25 with the shingles. So that's where we are. Again, we're still looking at the money aspect of it.
Right.
And if you're eventually going to build up, you don't want to spend more now on a roof
If-
that may or may not be useful, right?
Build up to what?
But that was when I was asking the whole idea here of what to do and
What to
everybody
do.
says, oh, to go up. If you think.
I know there was some paperwork amongst here, and it's not here in front of us now, that it was millions of dollars just for the architecture and engineering to come in and look at this building. Because again, it's not sufficient to go up without footers, heavier beams to shoot up that way. Because I was always under the aspect that if the fire department in the next 10 years moved up here, it would be a building out back.
Oh, like a
but-
separate building.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, got to have facilities and all that good trash. Yeah, it would be quite an undertaking.
And at that point, could it be potentially easier to just raise this building and start over?
If the money's there, but of course,
Right.
right now, we don't have any
No,
jet
we don't
money
have
coming
the
in
money for that.
or any future of it. Yeah, there would be an aspect of maybe cutting parts of the building off and starting all over again because of age, and you'd have to dig down to even see what your footer depth is to take the weight. A major event. Major.
When they put that on, wasn't the intent was to park the cars up on top?
Uh-huh.
So wouldn't those footers and everything else, they should have been very, very strong. I
Yeah.
don't know what it's called, but I mean, it would kind of like the recorder's
Right.
office. That has to be so strong because of all the books
The
and
weight of
blah,
those
blah, blah.
books.
Yeah.
So when they did the weight of the vehicles, wouldn't that?
You,
Well, I
One
think
would
you,
assume.
you could also be running into like building code back then
Well,
versus now.
and I don't think
Versus
they
what
ever
was
really stuck
commercial
vehicles up
use.
there that I recall.
No, I
as
don't
a
either.
over the years,
I'm sorry, you don't think what?
I don't think they ever actually stored vehicles up there because it wasn't long after all that the dealership was pulled. But I don't
Yeah.
remember like it ever being really full up there driving by.
I think they put them up there for just a bit of time
Keep 'em
and
away
it
from
wasn't
people.
as strong as they thought it was. And they had to bring it down. Uh-huh. So that goes to your building codes.
Maybe it was. I mean, I know that like as we've done buildings and improvements and you look at like the accessibility and all that, right? But there's also some things like if you're a public building, there's some hurricane or tornado shelter requirements that particularly with schools was an issue. And now my understanding is they've taken that back off because it became really cost prohibitive. So, when you start to think about like, if you start touching a building, I think to Keith's point, that design can be
Yes.
substantial, or you take it down and start fresh, which would be a little easier, like a building in a box, right?
Right.
But in all honesty, for what you're asking, I think right now we're an idle of what the future looks like for millions and millions of dollars, at least for the next couple of years. Without without any type of development money coming in.
Does
For
it-
upkeep of the township.
You know, what I would almost recommend is, you know, how you know that when they built like Fairfield, they would build schools behind, they would keep
Mhm.
the current school functioning and they would build behind it. And then one day they knocked down the old school and there
Yes,
were
they-
new ones.
Yeah,
Built a very simplistic building behind here. Square box.
Yeah. Take this out.
This one down.
Does it make sense to have a couple of roofing companies come in and just from a maintenance perspective, start to look at things like what would a roof cost? So we're ready when, if ever there is money.
Oh, like a tear off and replace.
Yeah, or get someone in here
Or
to
do
say,
structural design so that it's, should they put a faux roof over the existing,
we
know?
just have a tent.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, the estimates and the ideas don't cost anything.
No, you're right.
On
Right.
that, but what I'm worried about is, you end up with water back here and then you've got mold in the building and then you're talking about mold remediation or someone comes flying in and, there's a terrible car accident and obviously insurance will replace things, but it's something major happens to the building, right? And then we start thinking about well, what really does make sense. Just planning for 5-10 years down the road. Does that sound like a plan?
because we're kind of out of office space too. I mean, we have one office left. Potentially, should we ever want to grow, staffing.
Yeah. Or something, disaster strikes, right?
Right.
So maybe we get some roofers, get some HVAC electrical people. Just walk through and tell us. Someone might say, oh, I kind of know what this is, or someone might be like, what we all think is it's probably a tear down, right? But at least then you've vetted that. Is there anything else you'd want them to look at, Keith?
No.
You would put your truck up on top and see what happens.
I got a little Ford Focus. It'll be all right.
You'd be okay.
And again, we know it leaks out in the bay on the heavy storms. Again, like you said, the mold issue would be inner office carpet, drywall and all that. But out in the bay, we're bringing soaking wet cars in there.
Oh, yeah, that's
Cover
different.
cars.
Yeah, no, that's
No,
cold
but
storage.
The different
but
office.
Yeah, like you said, cold, like a
Yeah.
storage house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be to protect, anything for the roof lines would be to protect in here. We'll see what they have to say.
See, they may have solutions of other people that have built buildings. There might be like hey, you guys should wait this out, but you should look at so-and-so's building, which is.
Yeah. Yes, because right now, all materials,
How old is your
Roof.
computer?
Very.
Not very. Okay. Is that going forward is probably something we need to look at. Printers, computers, laptops,
Capital assets.
make sure that we stay relevant.
I'm running Windows 10.
Correct.
Along those lines, just food for thought too on the insurance. I don't know what our coverage is. But a lot of communities are getting hit with the cyber attacks. And so there's a lot of conversation about extra riders to be prepared for that. And I don't know where Otarma's been.
We have some,
I believe Oklahoma just recently really upgraded.
Okay.
but we need to look at what it is,
Yes.
because that's occurred to me with our current check fraud situation, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
I mean, I'm a little worried about what they might do with the information that they had. Hopefully, they're not smart enough to, it was one and done and they're over. But it does bother me. And just the number of emails we get a week, or I receive a week from alleged employees saying, hey, I need to change my bank account. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a,
you're on a list somewhere.
yeah, and I report it as phishing or spam every time. And
There's someone from Russia who tries to get into my work computer every day. I just keep blocking them. I spend a lot of time in Russia, apparently.
yeah,
The other item that I wanted to discuss, which really isn't purchasing something specific, but I am not able to find anywhere previous guidelines for purchasing with, you know, what's required at certain dollar amount. When our department has required to get quotes. I was able to find in front of you as an example of Colerain Township at what dollar points they require what, and beside it, I wrote in Fairfield Township's requirements. So I didn't know if it was a policy that the board would like to
Good luck tomorrow.
include
Thanks, buddy.
in our
Yeah.
purchasing policies. I believe so, but I believe, you know, nothing is ever cut and dried. You know, I'm sure our department heads have specific vendors that they use for high dollar purchasing. They like the vendor for whatever reason. They've established a relationship with that vendor. So would we require those items to, you know, to be quoted?
Get 3 price quotes.
Right. So it's just something that I wanted to bring to your attention for you all to just take it and ponder it, and at a later meeting, I'll bring it up again
and this is different from the budgeted items that they include. So let's say they
Oh,
have,
correct.
if there's a $12,000 item, but they listed it in their budget and it was approved, then when they come in, the administrator signs off as this was a budgeted item. For example, we just had a water heater blow at station 1 or 2. And he's gonna have to replace that fairly quickly, you know, but, so that wasn't unbudgeted and it will fall under a then and now, you know, so, I mean, but it would be good to have a,
Well, like a lot of times though, in that situation, if you want to get 3 quotes for a water heater.
right. He had a hard time getting one
Right.
contractor.
During the holidays to come out and.
Right. So it was just something that I'd like for you to think about. If it is something that you like a policy, let me know and we can include that in a meeting agenda.
Okay.
Did we ever have a policy that went badly? Like, did we
I
ever,
think so. I mean,
we just haven't
oh,
needed one yet? Okay.
I just, you know, if a resident were aware that we purchased something, you know, say example, that it's $5,000, non-emergency type situation, if they came and asked, did you get quotes on that?
Sure.
What would our response be at this point? What's like? And are we okay with that response? Because we have a relationship with the vendor.
Sure.
No, I didn't think.
Thank you. That was a good idea. Good idea. And again, like our big purchases, cruisers, fire trucks, them are state bids. So we're able to prove that. Like I said, items that run between 5,000 and 20,000, we should be able to provide that. Yes, we did seek the best expenditure for your tax dollars.
Right.
So we should look at that in the future.
And I like the idea of like value for the tax dollars too, because there are some people where you do have an established relationship, quality of work.
Yes.
Some communities will give credit to hometown. So like if some communities will say, all right, if you're within 10% of low bid, but you're local, we'll go with you. I mean, I think those are all things to think about.
Be rather complex.
Well, I know we've had trouble this year just getting the bid procedure where we are trying to get bids for things, like for repairing the roof. Paul had to beg, borrow, and steal to get two to finally return bids. So it's getting tougher.
Yeah.
There are two other funds for the two TIFs here in the township. With projected revenue and the fiscal officer noted during this current year that we were not paying to stretch their portion of the Ross Town Center TIF, so we do now have expenses coming out of that particular TIF. The UCF TIF does not require full compensation
That is
due
correct.
to the period. It's a shorter TIF.
Did we TIF on that?
Pardon?
Do we pay for anything with the TIF?
No.
It's just,
Neither of them have
it's
it.
just a.
Yes. And they don't generate a lot of revenue,
No.
so it's gonna take a while to amass some, be able to do a public infrastructure.
You knew where I was going.
Yes, I'm on your wavelength.
It just may be a good idea. So like what Julie and I were just talking about was, if you have low revenue TIFs, you're not creating a ton of money, but your TIF has to be spent on public infrastructure usually, right? So, and out here, we don't have a park system. We don't have a lot of those things. So you're
Right.
mostly looking at roads and public buildings. In order to start the clock on a lot of those things and to get the highest increment possible, because the increment is what goes into that TIF account. So you have your base year, everything you're paying now, taxes on your base year, it flows the way it normally does. So county levies, township, things like that. Then as your value starts to grow, so say we put one on in 22, and as it just starts to like casually grow because just land's getting more expensive or something develops and it shoots up like a UDF, that increment, jump in if I'm wrong here or making you uncomfortable, that increment starts to flow into that account. So that account starts to accrue more money so you can get to that project faster, right? Even if you didn't see, like in 2022, you didn't see anything in the horizon for 10 years. A lot of communities will go ahead and put the TIF on because they'll just start creeping that account up. The trade-off is generally you're limited to, I think 30 was the original limit, right? 30-year TIFs. So you're balancing, like I know in Monroe, we have some that we put on 15, 20 years ago, and they're still plopping along at nothing because the land is in ag status.
Okay.
So then we kind of look at that and we say, okay, well, what's the right time to roll off that TIF and to lay down another 30 years? Because you want to capture as much of that flexible increment as you can down the road. There's some other changes to the law now where there's like super TIFs and mega TIFs, and it's probably not something we'd ever need out here, but it's probably a good idea in the next year to think about what do we think is going to develop in the next 15, 20 years? And does it make sense to lay a TIF down, which can always be taken back up or restarted? You can figure that out, but how do we start to grow that? Because otherwise you're looking at 50 grand sitting and people are saying, well, why can't you, you got 50 grand right there. Why can't you do something with that? And it's like, well, because it's such a limited purpose
Right.
and it's making such a limited amount on its own. It's going to take us 20 years to get, it's going to be a heck of a turn lane though when we get to it, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, I know from the previous administrator conversations, I think the value of the UDF was over anticipated. And when the actual value went on, it wasn't what we thought. And I even actually called the auditor's office and spoke with the commercial appraiser and said, seriously, that's all it's worth. And because of border revisions and BTA decisions, those box type, there's just a really cut and dried amount on them. And it really
It's just a
wasn't.
box.
It's just a box.
It's a box with some gingerbread.
Yep, and it really didn't generate the value that I think was initially proposed or anticipated. And then, the other TIF is, for lack of, it just was never taken off.
Never done it.
Never developed.
No,
Well, when they put that road in and wants you to make that intersection a T, no builder's gonna put $1 million into that road before he even does anything that he's gonna put on the land.
right.
So that's gonna be a long time. Although, maybe not.
I mean, a lot of them, it's not even saying that, hey, this will develop. It's just saying we're planning down the road for if it does.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, we're not out anything. We still
Right.
got our full normal taxes. It didn't increase or decrease property owners' taxes. It's
Correct.
just the way it flows. And we'd have to think about levies too, because that would make a difference, but just something to think about for next year like that. And for the future, just like with this building.
That's all I have to hold on to.
You're good?
Okay, I was gonna try.
Have to read my note.
Okay. Back into,
Wow.
no, this is just
Excuse
a
me.
regular meeting, right?
We're at 22,196 to go retire to executive.
Compensation.
Okay. Here? Okay, I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-196 to retire to executive session to discuss the employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1. Time is 6:55. Need a second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Give this back to Bert.
Well,
Okay, move for the adoption of motion 22-197 to return from executive session to the scheduled special meeting. The time is 7:50. I need a second.
Second,
Roll call, please.
trustee Patterson,
yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. There being no further business to come before the board, I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-198 to adjourn the meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Next meeting is December 15th at 6 PM. That's it.